ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀਕਲਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਟੀਵੀ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਰਲਡ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਿਊਜ਼ 'ਚ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਿਦਮ। ਖਬਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵਧਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਖਾਸ ਹੈਡਲਾਈਨਸ ਵੱਲ। ਤੇਜ਼ੀ ਨਾਲ ਫੈਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਮੰਕੀ ਪਾਕਸ ਦਾ ਹਾਈਪ, ਮੋਂਟੇਟਿਡ ਸਟ੍ਰੇਨ 17 ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ 'ਚ ਪਾਏ ਗਏ ਮਾਮਲੇ। ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਆ 'ਚ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਨਾਲ ਨਜਿੱਠਣ ਲਈ ATAGI ਵੱਲੋਂ ਨਵੇਂ ਨਿਰਦੇਸ਼ ਜਾਰੀ। 30 ਮਈ ਤੋਂ ਚੌਥੀ ਖੁਰਾਕ ਲੈਣ ਦੇ ਯੋਗ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਅਪੰਗਤਾ ਵਾਲੇ ਲੋਕ। ਨਿਊਜ਼ੀਲੈਂਡ 'ਚ ਓਮਿਕਰੋਨ ਸਬ ਵੇਰੀਐਂਟ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਕੇਸ ਆਇਆ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ। ਅਪ੍ਰੈਲ ਤੋਂ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ 29 ਸ਼ੱਕੀ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਆਏ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ। ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਵਿਸਥਾਰ ਨਾਲ। ਮੰਕੀ ਪੌਕਸ ਦੇ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਦੇ ਉਮੀਦ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਖੁਦ ਨੂੰ ਪਰਿਵਰਤਿਤ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਹੈ। ਵਿਗਿਆਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਚੇਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹੋ ਕਾਰਨ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਿਰਫ ਅਫਰੀਕਾ 'ਚ ਪਾਏ ਜਾਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਇਹ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਬੜੀ ਤੇਜ਼ੀ ਨਾਲ ਹੁਣ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਹਰ ਹਿੱਸੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫੈਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਇੱਕ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਨਾਲ ਪੀੜਿਤ ਲੋਕ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ 17 ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ 'ਚ ਪਾਏ ਜਾ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ। ਵਿਗਿਆਨੀ ਮੰਕੀ ਪੌਕਸ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਈਪਰ ਮਿਊਟੇਟਿਡ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮਿਊਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਾਰਨ ਹੀ ਇਹ ਆਸਾਨੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਨਸਾਨਾਂ ਵਿਚਾਲੇ ਫੈਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਆ ਦੇ ਸਿਹਤ ਮੰਤਰਾਲੇ ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਅਨ ਟੈਕਨੀਕਲ ਐਡਵਾਈਜ਼ਰ ਗਰੁੱਪ ਇਮਿਊਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਨਿਰਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ 1.5 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਅਨ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਦੀ ਚੌਥੀ ਖੁਰਾਕ ਲੈਣ ਲਈ ਯੋਗ ਨੇ। ਸਿਹਤ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਕੈਟੀ ਗੈਲਾਕਰ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਸਲਾਹ ਮਿਲੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਤਹਿਤ ਇੱਕ ਚੌਥੀ ਖੁਰਾਕ ਦੀ ਹੁਣ ਅੰਡਰਲਾਈਂਗ ਸਿਹਤ ਸਥਿਤੀਆਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਤੇ ਅਪੰਗਤਾ ਵਾਲੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਲਈ ਸਿਫਾਰਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਦੀ ਚੌਥੀ ਖੁਰਾਕ ਲਈ ਯੋਗਤਾ ਦਾ ਵਿਸਤਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ। ਉਹ 30 ਮਈ ਤੋਂ ਚੌਥੀ ਖੁਰਾਕ ਲੈਣ ਦੇ ਯੋਗ ਹੋਣਗੇ। ਨਿਊਜ਼ੀਲੈਂਡ ਨੇ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਕੇਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਓਮਿਕਰੋਨ ਸਬ ਵੇਰੀਐਂਟ BA.2.12.1 ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਮਾਮਲਾ ਦਰਜ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਦਾ ਸਰਹੱਦ ਨਾਲ ਕੋਈ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਲਿੰਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਸਿਹਤ ਮੰਤਰਾਲੇ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਕੇਸ 10 ਮਈ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਏ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਦੇ ਟੈਸਟ ਦੇ ਨਤੀਜੇ ਤੋਂ ਹਾਕਸ ਬੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ। ਮੰਤਰਾਲੇ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਬਿਆਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਓਮਿਕਰੋਨ ਸਬ ਵੇਰੀਐਂਟ ਸੰਯੁਕਤ ਰਾਸ਼ਟਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਚਲਿਤ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਕਈ ਹਫ਼ਤਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਰਹੱਦ ਤੇ ਖੋਜਿਆ ਗਿਆ। ਅਪ੍ਰੈਲ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ 29 ਅਯਾਦਿਤ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ। ਉਧਰ ਬ੍ਰਿਸਬੇਨ ਵਿੱਚ ontario ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰੈਸਿਵ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਡਗ ਫੋਰਡ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪੱਤਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 21 ਮਈ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਖਣੀ ਅਤੇ ਪੂਰਬੀ ontario ਵਿੱਚ ਆਏ ਤੂਫਾਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਚਰਚਾ ਕੀਤੀ। 21 ਮਈ ਨੂੰ ਆਏ ਤੂਫਾਨ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਈ ਮੌਤਾਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਵਿਆਪਕ ਬਿਜਲੀ ਵੀ ਬੰਦ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਹੈ।
I just want to mention, first of all, I want to give my condolences to the families of lost loved ones. You know, this storm came through here pretty ferocious, and it really spread right across Ontario. I've talked to the local mayors that were affected the most. I've talked to the president of Hydro One as well. I want to thank all the utility workers that are giving up their long weekend, you know, jumping right in there, jumping into the trucks and getting electricity back up and going. They're absolute champions, all the utility workers. And again, I want to thank them very much, and we'll get the power on as quickly as possible. You know, this storm came through here pretty ferocious, and it really spread right across Ontario. I've talked to the local mayors that were affected the most. I've talked to the president of Hydro One as well. I want to thank all the utility workers that are giving up their long weekend, you know, jumping right in there, jumping into the trucks and getting electricity back up.
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੇ ਰਿਹਾਇਸ਼ੀ ਸਕੂਲ ਦੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਤੇ ਅਨਿਸ਼ਾਨਿਤ ਕਬਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਖੋਜ ਦੀ ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਨੂੰ 1 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਸਾਬਕਾ ਕੰਪਲੂਪਸ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਸਕੂਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਤੇ 200 ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਅਨਿਸ਼ਾਨਿਤ ਕਬਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਖੋਜ ਦੀ 1 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਵਰ੍ਹੇਗੰਢ ਨੂੰ ਮਨਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਕੰਪਲੂਪਸ BC ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਆਯੋਜਿਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਅਸੈਂਬਲੀ ਆਫ ਫਰਸਟ ਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਚੀਫ ਰੋਜ਼ੈਨ ਆਰਚੀਬਾਲਡ ਅਤੇ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਤੇ ਗਵਰਨਰ ਜਨਰਲ ਮੈਰੀ ਸਾਈਮਨ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ 'ਚ ਸ਼ਮੂਲੀਅਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ।
I also open my heart to the survivors who are with us here today, and to the families and communities that suffered generational trauma from the many threads intertwined with the residential school experience. You've known for so long, you knew what happened here, the atrocities, the deaths, the loss, and the silence. So many children gone, so much possibility gone. It has been called a discovery, the discovery of unmarked graves of children cruelly ripped away from this life too soon. But it isn't a discovery so much as a confirmation of your experiences and knowledge passed down from generation to generation. And now everyone knows. It shouldn't have taken that long, but finally people know. And knowing has transformed this community. People have made pilgrimages here to pay their respects, to say they're sorry, to show their support. But you haven't yet had time to grieve, to make peace in your hearts. I hope today contributes to that process of healing. It will take time. Healing is a migration, not a destination. It begins slowly, softly, and carefully. It follows its own path, carrying us forward, but also in many other directions. Yesterday, I walked a path through these grounds. Since then, I've searched for the words to convey my horror, my pain. Horror at the images that filled my heart with sorrow, of the fear and anguish every child here endured. Pain at the senseless loss of life in your families and communities. It's unimaginable that a place of learning was so cruel. It's inexcusable that people could commit these atrocities, or that people could stand silent as they were committed. In our communities, towns, and cities, we expect schools to be places of learning and friendship. Here at Kamloops residential schools, that was a lie.
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਪੂਰਬੀ ਸੂਬਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਏ ਭਿਆਨਕ ਤੂਫਾਨ ਕਾਰਨ 4 ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੌਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਤੂਫਾਨ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਈ ਘਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਿਜਲੀ ਸਪਲਾਈ ਵੀ ਬੰਦ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਚੱਲਦਿਆਂ ਟਾਵਾ ਦੇ ਮੇਅਰ ਜਿਮ ਵਾਟਸਨ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਸਾਂਝੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਫਾਈ ਕਰਮਚਾਰੀ ਸ਼ਨੀਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਤੂਫਾਨ ਤੋਂ 1998 ਦੇ ਬਰਫੀਲੇ ਤੂਫਾਨ ਅਤੇ 2018 ਦੇ ਤੂਫਾਨ ਦੀ ਤਬਾਹੀ ਦੀ ਤੁਲਨਾ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ।
Well, thank you, Hannah, for having me on. I certainly can see that letter does make sense. I've seen different parts of the city. Yesterday, I'm going back out on tour to visit parts in the East End, Navan and Sarsfield that were hard hit, along with Pine Glens. And the councillors in those areas are telling me this is as bad, if not worse, than what they remember from the tornado back in 2018. And then, of course, going back all the way to 1998. And the ice storm that devastated our city. I think we lost 6,000 trees just on public park properties alone. So it's very devastating. It's frustrating, obviously, for the public, excuse me, to see this kind of damage to their home, to their neighborhood, to their trees that they love, and at the same time without electricity. So we've opened 10 respite centers. You can get information on ottawa.ca. That's the best place to go, as well as our Twitter handle to get the most up-to-date information. We have about 164,000 people still without power. That's down by about, I think, 10 to 20,000 that hydro workers are working around the clock to get hydro back, but it has to be done obviously safely, and we also prioritize helping those vulnerable residents, those people who are economically challenged, live in affordable housing, don't have the luxury of going out and getting all new groceries because obviously their groceries have gone to waste because of the lack of power. So we're doing what we can through organizations like the Red Cross, the City of Ottawa Human Resources Task Force, and the Salvation Army that are providing meals at these respite centers. Well, it's still going on. You know, our crews were out literally within an hour after the storm passed. A lot of our traffic lights are out. I said in our press conference, we asked for people's patience. There are a lot of yahoos that were out there going through the traffic lights, not caring about the others, and not doing it in a courteous way. We don't want another accident to occur as a result of someone being an idiot or foolish, and stretch our emergency resources even thinner. So we have, as you know, Hannah, living here, Ottawa is a large piece of geography. We can fit the cities of Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton within our boundaries. We're 2,600 square kilometers, and almost every single part of the city was affected by this storm. The tornado, on the other hand, cut a swath of destruction in a set area. It didn't go all across the city. This one went basically all across the city, in rural Ottawa, suburban Ottawa, downtown Ottawa. Still a lot of traffic lights. I'm seeing the visuals on your screen. These are big poles. We lost over, I think, 220 poles that just snapped, plus 4 major towers. And we have to rely on Hydro One to get those services back. They provide the electricity to all residents, and Hydro Ottawa gets it to your door. So it's really going to be a real challenge over the next couple of days. Hydro anticipates it's going to be to get everyone back online 3 to 4 days, but people are getting back online segment by segment, sector by sector, and we've seen areas in Canada, for instance, and parts of the south end of the city where electricity has been brought back on. So I ask for people's patience. I know that's easy to say. I didn't lose any power here in my home in the West End.
ओंटारियो लिबरल पार्टी ਦੇ ਆਗੂ ਸਟੀਵਨ ਡੇਲ ਡੂਕਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪੱਤਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ। ਸਟੀਵਨ ਡੇਲ ਡੂਕਾ ਨੇ ਕਲੀਅਰੈਂਸ ਰੋਕਲੈਂਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਲੀਅਰੈਂਸ ਰੋਕਲੈਂਡ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਮੁਹਿੰਮ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕੀਤੀ। ਦੱਸ ਦੇ ਕਿ ਓਂਟਾਰੀਓ ਦੇ ਵੋਟਰ 2 ਜੂਨ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਵੱਲ ਵਧ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ।
My sincere condolences to the families of, I believe now, the 10 individuals across Ontario who lost their lives during and in the aftermath as a result of the brutal storm that touched down and traveled through so many different parts of this province. I know that it is heartbreaking for the families of those victims, and I just wanted to offer my condolences. Secondly, I want to begin by thanking Amanda Simard for spending some important time with me today in 2 particular communities here in Glengarry, Prescott, Russell, the community of Hammond and the community of Sarsfield, that were hit directly and in a very, very brutal way by the storm of a number of days ago. And I also want to thank Mayor Mario Xanth, the mayor of Clarence Rockland, who spent some time with us in Hammond specifically as we went down one of the residential streets where literally you could see there had been destruction. You could see the roof of a nearby Rona and other buildings that had lifted off during the storm and had come down on some of the homes on that particular residential street that we saw. And we also had the chance today to speak with individual residents from Hammond. And I just wanted to share some of my thoughts about what I heard from them, and then also talk a little bit more about the leadership that is so required in this province right now. So first of all, from the residents, and I suspect that this is true right across the communities directly impacted here in Glengarry, Prescott, Russell, there is a remarkable strength and resilience and an attitude of being a good and supportive neighbor here in this community. And I think that's the Ontario way. The fact that despite the hardships that we face from time to time, that we do in this province have extraordinary capacity to come together, to be there for one another, to be good neighbors. For example, on that street in Hammond, I heard how there are so many tradespeople who live up and down that particular residential neighborhood, electricians and plumbers, and they've been out helping their neighbors deal with broken sump pumps and helping with other forms of reconnections or connections to generators. So important to hear that. I heard Ms. Simard and Mayor Xanth speaking directly with those residents about some of the concerns they have about their generators, being able to run them, the local grocery stores. But I just wanted to highlight, there is something magical about people who live here in this province, Ontarians, who understand what it means to be good neighbors and to look out for one another. But they require leadership. They require real, genuine leadership. There are a couple of other practical things that were brought to my attention today that I just wanted to highlight. You know, I think about the job of being premier, and I know there are a lot of very important, of course, responsibilities that come with that job, and a lot of laws and regulations and rules that need to be changed and passed. But I just wanted to highlight 2 specifically, again, that make a lot of sense to me, that practical suggestions that would be helping people in this part of the province right now. Number one, one of the biggest challenges in these communities that have been directly impacted is the fact that the power is out. for thousands of homes and farms and businesses. The power is out right now. Now, I heard from Mayor Zant, we heard today, that there are crews on their way from New Brunswick, which is great to see, hydro crews to help out with connection efforts here. But it's so critically important to make sure that people in this community can have access to grocery stores and to gas stations, in particular to help run the generators that many of them have at home.
ਐਤਵਾਰ ਰਾਤ ਵੁਡਬਾਈਨ ਬੀਚ ਪਾਰਕ 'ਚ ਸ਼ੂਟਿੰਗ ਤੇ ਸ਼ੂਰੇਬਾਜ਼ੀ ਦੀ ਵਾਪਰੀ ਘਟਨਾ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ 2 ਵਿਅਕਤੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਲਿਜਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ। ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਰਾਤੀ 10 ਵਜੇ ਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਗੋਲੀ ਲੱਗਣ ਦੀ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਮਿਲੀ ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਮੌਕੇ ਤੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਜ਼ਖਮੀ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਗੋਲੀ ਲੱਗੀ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ। ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਗੰਭੀਰ ਜ਼ਖਮੀ ਹਾਲਤ 'ਚ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਲਿਜਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ। ਪੁਲਿਸ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਸ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਦੀ ਜਾਂਚ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਐਤਵਾਰ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਦਸੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਘੱਟੋ-ਘੱਟ 7 ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਜ਼ਖਮੀ ਹੋ ਗਏ। ਇੱਕ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਲੱਤ ਟੁੱਟ ਗਈ ਤੇ 2 ਹੋਰ ਸੜ ਗਏ ਅਤੇ 17 ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਨੇ।
First, I'd like to say that last night, Sunday, May 22nd, the Toronto Police Service had a visible presence, including various police resources at Woodbine Beach and Asperger's Bay. Over the course of several hours, there were multiple incidents, including a shooting, a stabbing, and 2 reported robberies at gunpoint. Officers also responded to multiple calls of crowds of people illegally setting off fireworks. We allege that some individuals were intentionally directing fireworks at people, including at police officers. This reckless behavior resulted in injuries to our officers, and our officers immediately responded to protect the public. Despite a hostile crowd and having fireworks aimed at them, officers were able to successfully make arrests and the crowd was eventually dispersed. Approximately 17 arrests were made and we continue to receive updates from the divisions so that that number is subject to change with expected charges to be added, including for assaulting a police officer. A news release will be issued later today on the criminal charges. Numerous injuries were reported, including 7 police officers. Some of the officers' injuries are serious in nature and include 1 officer breaking a leg while responding to a shooting, 2 officers receiving burns and ear injuries when fireworks were thrown and exploded near them. Another officer was struck directly in the face by a firework and sustained serious abrasions to his face, ears, and eyes. This is unacceptable behavior and we will continue to investigate all of these incidents. Tonight, we will have a large and visible, dedicated policing operation in place for the planned fireworks event in the city tonight. City bylaws prohibit possession of fireworks on beaches and parks, and any individual found in possession of them is subject to charges and search and seizure by the appropriate law enforcement, including city bylaw officers and Toronto Police. Anyone who engages in activity that risks public safety can expect to be arrested. Public safety is our #1 priority. A number of police resources will be in the area tonight to facilitate what we hope can be a peaceful and safe celebration for the many people and families celebrating the long weekend.
ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਗ੍ਰੀਨ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਨੇਤਾ ਮਾਈਕ ਸਨੀਨਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਰਚੁਅਲ ਮੁਹਿੰਮ ਦੀ ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਕੀਤੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰਿੰਸ ਐਡਵਰਡ ਆਈਲੈਂਡ ਗ੍ਰੀਨ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਨੇਤਾ ਪੀਟਰ ਬੇਵਲ ਬੇਕਰ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਾਮਿਲ ਹੋਏ ਅਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਮਹਾਮਾਰੀ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਚਰਚਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ।
Spending quality time with family and friends in the places they love. But these places that so many people and families love spending time in are under threat. Doug Ford's declared war on nature. He spent the last 4 years systematically dismantling environmental protections and is now trying to pave over the greenbelt, farmland and wetlands with highways like Highway 413. Mr. Ford thinks that environmental protections are red tape, but Greens know that environmental protections are about protecting the places we love and protecting the nature that protects us from climate-fueled weather events like flooding, storms, and droughts. And that's why today I'm announcing that the Ontario Greens are fully committed to protecting and expanding access to nature and ensuring that we don't pave over the places we love in this province. We will do this by creating 5 new provincial parks and strengthen and fund the ecological and integral role of Ontario's public park system. We will work with Indigenous communities to protect at least 25 of our lands and water in Ontario by 2025 and 30% by 2030. We will double the size of the Greenbelt by creating a Blue Belt. We will strengthen the Greenbelt Act and make new highways through the Greenbelt illegal. And we will restore the landmark Endangered Species Act 2007 and the science-based system for determining species status, recovery, and habitat protection while eliminating exemptions for industry. Protecting our natural heritage will also enrich biodiversity and protect species at risk. You know, it was unfortunate the previous Liberal government gutted the Endangered Species Act, and the Ford government put the Endangered Species Act at even greater risk with their programs like Pay to Slay and other ways of undermining biodiversity and species protection. Expanding access to nature will help improve people's physical and mental well-being and just overall well-being. Greens are the only party talking about protecting nature and the impacts of the climate emergency in this election. We're the only party taking the climate crisis seriously with new solutions that address the rising cost of living and set our economy up to create new careers and better jobs for people. We are fully committed to protecting and expanding access to nature to create a healthier, climate-ready province. We have the leadership with a fantastic and diverse set of candidates across the province to make it happen. So we're heading into the final 10 days of this campaign. And I'm looking forward to continue to work hard to earn people's trust and earn Ontarians' vote and highlight how Greens will build the connected, caring, climate-ready province Ontarians want. This is the Green moment. Momentum is building across the province. We're running our biggest campaign ever with strong candidates like Matt Richter and Perry Sound-Muskoka and Diane Sachs and University Rosedale, Laura Campbell and Dufferin Caledon, Abhijit Mane and Beaches East York, and so many other fantastic Green candidates across the province.
विश्व सेहत संगठन विच कोविड तकनीकी लीड डॉक्टर मारिया वैन केरखौफ ने मंकी पॉक्स के जवाब दौरान कहा कि वायरस के संचारण के पैटर्न आम नहीं ने। उन्होंने कहा कि अज तक WHO ने ब्रिटेन, स्पेन, फ्रांस, स्विट्जरलैंड, अमरीका ते आस्ट्रेलिया ते कनेडा समेत एक दर्जन देशां च मंकी पॉक्स के 90 तो वध केस दर्ज कीते ने।
As Rosamond described, and as you've described, Nika, we're seeing not typical patterns of monkeypox transmission. And as Rosamond has said, we've been aware of this virus for 40 years. So in countries where we are seeing new cases that have not experienced cases before, surveillance has really focused on particular populations so far. And right now we are describing what we are seeing. And what we are seeing are cases being detected in the communities of men having sex with men, who identify as having sex with men. But as surveillance expands, we expect that more cases will be seen. But we do need to put this into context because it's not COVID. So we have so far seen, and I don't actually have the exact numbers at hand because we're learning more even as we sit here, but we're talking about less than about 200 cases of confirmed and suspected cases so far. So that may change over time. So this is really important why we have surveillance and why we have raised an alert to say, okay, we need to be on the lookout for this in countries that don't typically experience monkeypox. So we've been working with countries, we've been working with ministries of health to expand surveillance, to look for people who have rash, so dermatology clinics, emergency departments, infectious disease clinics, sexual health clinics, so that we really understand the extent of infection. But your question was, who's at risk? So as Rosamond has explained, transmission is really happening from close physical contact, skin to skin contact. So it's quite different than COVID in that sense. So we are looking for people who have rash, so we can help them first and foremost to understand what their risk is. And we should say that most of the people who have been identified so far have had more mild disease, or let's say not severe disease. But anyone they come in contact with needs to be informed so that we can prevent onward spread. And the thing I just want to say here is that this is a containable situation, particularly in the countries like where we are seeing these outbreaks that are happening across Europe, in North America as well. But we can't take our eye off the ball of what's happening in Africa as well, in endemic countries. So this gives us an opportunity to talk about what monkeypox is, what it isn't, so you can be very well informed. As the World Health Organization, we bring expert groups together all the time. You know, we're talking about these pathogens like monkeypox, like COVID, chikungunya, Zika, and that's a common thing that we do. We have expert networks that we work with all over the world. I talk about this all the time for COVID, but we do this for other diseases as well. And that's not unusual for us. We have technical advisory groups, we have our strategic advisory groups for infectious hazards, and we bring them together to brief them. And we also ask for their advice on what WHO should be doing. And this is what the Director General, has all the time. We bring this together. Whether or not we will have an emergency committee or not is also something that is discussed across many of the different pathogens. Monkeypox would be no different. And I think I just want to get some misnomer out there. This is part of the process of WHO, and these are the mechanisms that we have. So it's always in the background. It's always a consideration. But what we're trying to do in working with Rosamond, so Rosamond you'll hear a lot more of on monkeypox because she is our focal point on this and she's the expert. But I just wanted to be clear that we do these types of things all the time, and it's good for us as an organization because we are lucky to be able to bring together the world's expertise across so many different topics of clinical management, of IPC, and monkeypox will be no different on lab. And it's great to work with Andy and the team on this because there's just
ਯੂਕਰੇਨ ਦੇ ਰਾਸ਼ਟਰਪਤੀ ਵਲੋਦੋਮੀਰ ਜ਼ੈਲੈਂਸਕੀ ਨੇ ਦਾਵੋਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਲੋਬਲ ਵਪਾਰਕ ਨੇਤਾਵਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਇੱਕ ਮੋੜ ਦਾ ਸਾਹਮਣਾ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਰੂਸ ਵਿਰੁੱਧ ਪਾਬੰਦੀਆਂ ਲਗਾਉਣੀਆਂ ਪਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਬੇਰਹਿਮੀ ਨਾਲ ਤਾਕਤ ਦੀ ਵਰਤੋਂ ਕਰਨ ਤੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਜ਼ੈਲੈਂਸਕੀ ਨੇ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਸਕੋ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਦਬਾਅ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਅਪੀਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਪਾਬੰਦੀਆਂ ਲਗਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਅਪੀਲ ਕੀਤੀ। ਉਸਨੇ ਤੇਲ ਦੀ ਪਾਬੰਦੀ, ਸਾਰੇ ਰੂਸੀ ਬੈਂਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਰੁਕਾਵਟ ਤੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਵਪਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ। ਜ਼ੈਲੈਂਸਕੀ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਵਿਦੇਸ਼ੀ ਕਾਰੋਬਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰੂਸ ਤੋਂ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਹਟਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਰੂਸੀ ਆਈਟੀ ਉਦਯੋਗ ਨੂੰ ਪੱਛਮ ਤੋਂ ਕੱਟਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ। ਫਿਲਹਾਲ ਵੱਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੀ। ਹੋਰ ਤਾਜ਼ਾ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਲਈ ਜੁੜੇ ਰਹੋ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਟੀਵੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦਿਓ ਆਗਿਆ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ।